to join us this afternoon as we shape and discuss some of the pertinent issues that we've been having during this particular pandemic or crisis. And also as others are getting out of this particular pandemic, and those who are still in, we're able to share ideas in terms of how best to manage the people we manage and we lead. And it's yet another wonderful opportunity to have you all this afternoon. I want to start by recognizing some of the contributors this afternoon whom I'll be sharing with. You can see them on the side, and they're already here to share insights and also to contribute towards this particular webinar this particular afternoon. So mine is just to introduce you. This webinar is organized by ABMC International. We are based in Nairobi, Kenya. We have offices in Kampala, Nairobi, and in Dar es Salaam. And this afternoon, we are glad and energized to bring you the topic which is on your screen, which is leading and managing HIPPOs, which is high performing employees virtually in times of crisis, and also the new dimensions which will be coming out of this particular pandemic, which there's been a lot of discussions that has been happening in terms of managing people during this pandemic. So with me, I have all the panelists, and they are set to go. So as we continue, I'll just be checking to see if there's anything you need to understand in terms of how this webinar is and how it's run. The portal we're using is a webinar app, and it allows only the panelists to come on the screen. So at the end of this particular webinar, I'll allow some of the panelists and also the delegates who are joining us this afternoon by just raising your hand and bringing you to the portal in terms of sharing an idea or perhaps asking a question, and that will be towards the end. At the beginning now, I just want to highlight some of the key highlights that we have. So some of the questions have been channeled towards the presentation for this afternoon, and it will be a great idea to also hear even from you who is at home there. Perhaps you have better experiences in terms of managing these high employees and people management skills while you're working at home, and it will be a better opportunity to also learn from you. So those are some of the questions that we'll try to tackle at the end. So, and I know some of the presenters here will be discussing some of these particular questions as we go on. So to jump into the next agenda is to share with you the program. It's going to run until 6 o'clock, and we intend to ensure to minimize as much as possible time in terms of presentation and give you much time in terms of Q&A and asking questions and discussion. My first panelist is Stuart. I can see Stuart is already joined in. He'll be taking us through the topic of new economies, opportunities that are coming up. We'll also have Dorcas sharing with us, leading with integrity. I have Nabil from UAE. I have Gloria from Kampala also joining us, and they are all set on the side, waiting to go. Over and above that, I have Dixon Ojuku, who is our lead consultant. We also work with him. He's also joining us in to shape ideas and chair during the Q&A sessions, so that we have a more broad panel discussion during the Q&A session. So with those few remarks, mine is to jump in directly into the webinar and invite the first keynote speaker, who will be Stuart Samkange. And Stuart, I can see is already there. So let me minimize here. Stuart, he's in charge of managing LinkedIn business in Africa. He provides leadership advice and insights from the planning, hiring, engagement, and development of talent in Africa. His business story and advice come from having worked within 7 countries across East Africa, some of the blue chips in Africa in terms of technology, where he'll be joining us this particular afternoon. So Stuart, I can see you're already on, and I would like to give you this opportunity to join us and give us a brief presentation about the topic. Stuart will not stay with us until the end. He has another portal is joining in later on immediately after this. So I'll try and push him to ensure he answers at least 1 or 2 questions when it comes to technologies, especially now that we are talking about LinkedIn solutions that are currently being helpful within this particular pandemic. So LinkedIn, Stuart, are you there? I almost called you LinkedIn.
I'm right here. How are you doing,
Fabulous.
Joseph?
I'm fine, thank you. And thank you for sharing this opportunity and joining us this evening.
Thank you. Hello, Africa. How are you doing? So glad to have this opportunity to talk to you. I specifically asked to be the first speaker, not only because I have another engagement after this, but because I wanted us to start off on a positive note. I wanted us to start off by looking at the silver lining of the current environment we're in. So my topic is really about talking to you as a professional, talking to you as a leader, showing you how you can leverage your digital footprint in order to reinvent yourself, in order to reinvent your business, and to attract customers and leads to your organization. I'll touch on a little bit about the recruitment landscape, because we can only understand the new economic opportunities when we truly lead with data. So with that in mind, I've got 13 minutes. I'm setting off the tone. If I overrun, everybody else does. So I'm going to try and cover in 13 minutes all of these topics. Now, the beauty of this call is that a lot of this data is going to be recorded, so you'll be able to come back, take screenshots, and actually see some of the free resources that I've made available to you. So with that in mind, let's get started. Let's start off by looking at our landscape. And specifically, I picked out Kenya as a country so that we can understand what new economic opportunities exist when we understand what the landscape looks like. So I looked at the current in-demand jobs in the last quarter. And what the data is telling us is that there's several roles that multiple companies are seeking to hire. Those roles are software engineering, project management, accountants and salespeople, and financial advisors, and it continues from there. By understanding the jobs that are most in demand, I'm hoping that you as a talent professional will then internalize this information in understanding which data pools are going to be easier to go after, which data pools are harder to go after. And then if you're thinking of this as a professional and you might be transitioning from the current job and role you're in, I want you to focus your mind around the top in-demand skills. Because what it will show you is the skills that organizations have been demanding from LinkedIn in Kenya, and then of course, seeing how that outweighs with the number of skills that we have in the marketplace. Having understood that, I also wanted to paint out for you the opportunities that exist and which industries are growing. Again, based on the data that we have when organizations go out there and try and hire people, based on profiles, that's how I'll be leading this conversation. So the top 5 industries include our financial sector, software and IT services, and this is quite broad. We include our communication skills as well, education, nonprofit, and corporate services. Those would be the fastest growing industries based on data. What's also important to understand as a talent professional is what happens to our talent when they joins us. The ones that stay and the ones that leave us. Where do they go? And if so, if they're leaving us, what skills have we lost and what skills have we gained? Again, I'm talking to you as a professional, I'm talking to you as a leader, I'm talking to you as someone starting your career so that you can align demand versus the skill gaps that you have and address these opportunities that are becoming available. In terms of addressing these opportunities, no matter how you define it, success starts with your digital footprint, what you're doing on the internet. And if you're using your real name, recruiters, hiring managers, potential partners, stakeholders, they do look you up. So is your photo a best representation of you? Is it warm and encouraging? Does your location relate to where you are right now? Because a lot of people make mistakes of putting as aspirational locations, and what will then happen is that you'll miss out on remote work opportunities. The world of work has changed. There will be people who will be looking to you to provide freelance services or consulting services remotely. So make sure your location details are correct. The summary that you put in, traditionally, a lot of us have gone in and put in our job descriptions. But in the era that we live in, if you want to access these new economic opportunities, you must tell a compelling story. This is who I am. This is what I do. And this is why it matters. So if your digital footprint is not telling your professional story as a leader, as a recruiter, as a performance manager, or someone specifically looking to hire in a particular industry, that is the reason why people are not connecting with you. And the beauty with LinkedIn, guys, is that we have realized over time that the human eye processes videos and rich media much more than they do with text. So you have the ability right now to attach rich media to your profile. Tell a story, engage the world, tell them what your business does, so that you don't have to pull out a PowerPoint deck when you're trying to get across a value proposition. As I said, a lot of this information is self-explanatory, and you'll be able to go into it in a little bit more detail after this. One of the resources that we're going to be making available to you who are attending this session is the executive guide on how you create your social leadership presence as an executive. So if we're thinking about the world we're going into right now, storytelling, like I said, is going to be one of the critical things that you will need to gain as a skill. How you tell your story of how you're saving organizations money, how you tell your story in terms of what you're doing to retain your employees, what you're doing for your stakeholders. I've put up some content suggestions, and as I said, at the end of this, you're going to get access to this document, which you can then use to internalize your personal message. Your message of either finding a new job or finding new customers and new markets to get into. Because we are moving from a local focus to a global focus. Over here, I wanted to talk to you about a superpower of LinkedIn. So creating your profile is just the basics. What is important for you is to share thought leadership. As talent professionals, each one of you does an exceptional job every day in empowering, educating, inspiring, motivating employees. With that in mind, why don't you take on the mindset of a teacher and share what you've learned today? Why don't you take the mindset of a student and engage with content from other people? This could be content from organizations you're trying to do business with. This could be even content from our employees, seeing what they're saying, seeing what feedback they're sharing with us, and then changing the way we operate as a business. It's a superpower. We don't have time to go into it. If you want to find out how to publish these things and how to do them, I'm going to share my profile where you find a lot of these articles. If we're going through challenging times, and if storytelling is going to be one of the key engines to get our message across of how we're surviving, how we're managing and thriving in this time, then it is upon you to take rich media and fully utilize it when you communicate. You want to stimulate the mind. It's easier to tell a story with video than it is to tell a story as text. There are techniques to it, and I'm actually going to give you help of how you can learn to start telling your story. Let's not forget our employees. Whatever changes we're making to our processes, to our technology, or even to our people in terms of the roles that they're doing, we need to communicate those to our external stakeholders, our partners, our constituents, our customers. One of the things that people forget to leverage is the power of amplifying messages using your internal team. I've shared some best practices there. And as I said, I encourage you after this webinar to go back, review some of this content. Number two, as a professional, as an organization, as a leader, as an individual, here's some of the things you can do to gain some superpowers and start accessing new economic opportunities. Start participating in online conversations. Start using your mobile device, which is with you every day, to have an always-on philosophy, staying up to date with what's happening in your industry, finding out what thought leadership is there, finding out what best practices other people have tried, getting into conversations and getting into groups with the purpose of learning will enrich and expose you to new opportunities. My only pro tip here is don't join groups to sell. Those days of selling are over. Join groups to educate, inspire, and get people to see your value and your experience. If you're a job seeker and you're listening to this, or your job has been made redundant, or you've been reduced hours, or you're worried about your future, one access to new economic opportunities is being smart about how you use your LinkedIn. LinkedIn is like a car. When you get into a good looking car, you will adjust the seat. You will adjust the air conditioning. You will adjust everything to make it comfortable. Likewise, I encourage you to take a little bit of time, go into your privacy settings, go there and let recruiters know what jobs you're open for. Let them know the titles that you're seeking. Let them know the aspirations that you have. Let them know you're willing to work volunteer work. Let them know that you're looking for remote work. Let them know which country you're in and what skills you're acquiring. The people you currently work with will not have access to that. As long as you and that person are in the same company, and that's what it says on your LinkedIn profile, you will not get to see those who are open for roles. So let us take the time to be mindful about how we go after these new opportunities, and let's do it smartly. Another pro tip here is that follow companies on LinkedIn. When you follow companies on LinkedIn, here's the favor you're doing yourself. Maybe as a job seeker, or maybe as a company that's looking to do business with the other company. When you follow them, you will receive updates of everything that company will be posting. Likewise, when you set up your job alerts specifically for certain companies, you'll be one of the first people to know when jobs and opportunities become available. So take the time to personalize your experience, to tell the recruiters what you're looking for, and be on the platform so that when new opportunities come, you're able to address them. Not only are we helping you in terms of knowing what jobs are out there, one of the things that a lot of us do not know is a superpower and is available for every single member on LinkedIn is the ability to help you prepare for interviews. So the common questions that you're being asked, we will give assistance on how to approach those questions, and you can record or you can take the time to plan and practice with somebody else. So if you're a recruiter, the way we interview right now is going through video, is going through WhatsApp, going through FaceTime, going through all sorts of other rich medias. Are you prepared? Do you know how to do those video interviews and how to get that digital body language going? Now, I only had a little bit of time, but I wanted to spend it on sharing with you some things that can help you. We have put together some learning. These are some of the courses that will be available to help you with your job strategy as an individual, but also as a professional, how you project yourself when you're on video or when you're on camera. We've also put together some learning for those who own small businesses. So if you own a small business today and you need to know how to do cash flow because you've had to let go of your bookkeeper, you want to know how to break even, you want to know how to search for new leads, you want to know how to market on LinkedIn, these courses are for free. I'm putting them up on the screen right now, and I know that Joseph and the team will be sharing them with you. You got well over 30 courses available to you for free. Every time I'm on LinkedIn, I talk about each one, teach one. I'm asking you guys, please share these links, share them with your network so that we all grow. And with that, that is my 10 minutes done.
Super amazing, Stuart. As always, an inspirational storyteller, and I've been following your conversation on the importance of storytelling and sharing our success journeys, our failures, and those are the things that build us. Amazing, and thank you to team at LinkedIn also for taking time to join us this afternoon, and also for giving us those tools that are already available. And one of the key component for this webinar this evening was to give technology tools that participants can be able to join in, take advantage of, and also to ensure that they're able to learn and also at the same time manage throughout this pandemic and also ensure that the employees are engaged. Thank you so much, Stewart. Always an inspirational, and I would love to see you once more on another webinar. So I know you're jumping into another webinar, and I highly appreciate for your time this particular afternoon. All this recording and all this content will be shared to all the participants. So not to worry, take time to join in, ask as many questions as possible as we go on. Thank you, Stewart.
Do you have any questions for me before I leave? Has anyone got something burning?
What I will ask them is to pop your questions on the Q&A. Stewart will be able to answer them before he leaves so that I'm able to introduce the next facilitator.
Thank you very much, Joseph.
God bless you so much, and it's wonderful to see you. Good. That was inspirational, and thank you, Stewart, once again. Over to the next presenter, and this is none other than Dorcas Wanaina, OGW. She's an accomplished certified human resource professional, CHRPK, with years of experience across the globe, focusing on people management, HR strategy, formulation, and implementation of employee training and development, and change management. She served in private sector, mainly on the relief, international development sector, and on the public sector as the executive director of the Institute of Human Resources Management in Kenya. She has participated in several policy formulation, and she recently, I think in 2018, she was awarded the OGW by the President of Kenya for her contribution to the public service. And she's a fellow of the American Academy of Project Management, and she sits at the board of Global Academy of Finance Management. So this afternoon, Dorcas will be joining us to share with us two topics. The first one will be now, then next one will be later on. And the first topic she will be joining us to present is on leading with integrity. I know Dorcas is already here, and I would like to ask her to join in and share her presentation. Good to see you, Dorcas.
Thank you very much, Joseph. And participants, you're welcome. We are glad to have you join us in this session. And Stuart has done a great job in what he has taken us through. As I share my screenshots, Joseph, can you see those?
Just in a minute, not yet. It's not yet shown. Yes. Try again. We are good now. Yeah. So.
Therefore, because of our time limitation, I will jump quickly into the topic on how we can lead with integrity, especially at this time. One of the things that really encouraged me about integrity is that one either has it or doesn't have it, but we all can learn it. Indeed, one of the American Army generals that I admire most is Dwight Eisenhower, and he was also the fourth president of the United States. He said that the supreme quality for leadership is unquestionably integrity. Without it, no real success is possible, no matter whether it's on a section gang, football field, in an army, or in an office. We all should embrace integrity. And one of the surveys that I was reading recently in The Economist by Robert Half, they surveyed over 1,000 employees and over 2,200 chief financial officers. And they asked them to choose from three responses, one of the questions, which of these are the most important attributes in a corporate leader? And they answered that integrity is considered as one of the top qualities. And therefore, integrity being that you will do the right thing, whether one is watching you or not. And that people want to work for ethical leaders. A leader that is ethical will certainly treat them well. And that is the feeling of employees as well, especially at this time of COVID-19, that can our leader empathize with us? Can our leader care so much about us, even when we are at home and we are worried about our jobs? That a leader who is ethical will do what is best for the business. That a leader who is ethical will deal with integrity in all their deals. They enhance business. They attract investors. They attract the best professionals. Now, integrity is what our employees are looking for from us as leaders. And I speak from a perspective of HR profession, from a perspective of somebody who has led an institution. I've been leading the Institute of Human Resource Management until up to recently for 3 years. And therefore, a leader's words, their actions, their decisions, the methodologies, they create a company's values and the culture for that company. People
Sorry, Dorcas.
want this.
Sorry to cut you short.
Yes.
Put for us the full screen so that we're able to see clearly. Sorry for that.
Thank you for notifying me, Joseph. We're good?
Yes, we're good.
You're on the full screen now.
Yes, now you can go on. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And therefore, some of the quick things that I would like to share with our participants tonight is that when a leader leads with integrity, their employees feel it. And their employees want to follow that one because that one cares for them, especially at this difficult time. You cannot delink integrity from trust. An employee-leader relationship is anchored on these two, integrity and trust. At executive level, you are judged, or we are judged, by competence and character, and integrity is on character. Having good intention for your employees, being kind to your employees, not having selfish motives, not having personal vendetta, not being vindictive. And that equal applies to you as HR professionals, because we are the ones who handle matters of people. Are we vindictive sometimes? Do we have thoughts that are negative? Do we want to quickly lay off somebody, not because of what they have done, but simply because we don't feel that we connect with them? Most organizations can talk about integrity in their values, but they do not live those values. I'll give an example. In the middle of COVID-19, one of the companies simply cut off the contracts of their employees while they were at the venue where they do their work. And employees spent an overnight on the cold floors without knowing what to do next. That happened here in Kenya not long ago at our airport here. But even well-meaning organizations simply forget about what integrity is about. What then do we lead? What do we need as leaders so that we can be seen to be leading with integrity? Number one, do not be afraid to be vulnerable. Even as a HR professional, do not be afraid to say, I don't know what to do with employees when they're working remotely. Be vulnerable. If you make a mistake, say, and do all you can to fix it. Not long ago, the Prime Minister of Italy shed tears on public TV because of COVID-19. He was breaking down because he did not know what else to do for the citizens of the country. When you have laid off employees and you have slashed their salaries and they are running to court to sue you, like it has happened recently in most organizations that I've interacted with, they did so without knowing what was best to do. And when the leaders realized they had made a mistake in how those salaries were slashed in order to maintain a business, they retraced their steps. They had conversations with their employees and they got to an understanding. One other way to lead with integrity is to be reliable as a leader. You keep to your promises. The promises that you make, keep them. You are simply not an individual, but you are also at the top. You are HR manager, you are HR director, you are vice president of human resource, or you are a CEO, you are a business leader. be reliable, or at least be punctual. You know, when you are having Zoom calls with your employees, do you keep the time? Is the call at 9 and you appear at 9:30? You must meet your deadlines for employees to look up to you. Be task focused. Also, as a leader, get your things done. Maintain focus and also immerse yourself in the activities that you are meant to do. These are experiences that employees are looking up to. They don't want to see you lazing around when they're working so hard. Pay attention to details. You know, sometimes we talk about not sweating the small stuff, but in this case, you will have to sweat the small stuff. It's COVID-19. It's a crisis we don't know about. It's a virus we can't even touch. We can't even see the rest of us. But how do we make sure that we are conscious of details and that we are thorough, we are precise, we are accurate? We are saying that these are the employees that are essential. They have to be coming to the office every day. And yet the employee is thinking, I am not essential. I should be working from home. Pay attention to details and determine who that is, what that is about. We are slashing employee salaries. Are we slashing the benefits that we are remitting to other statutory organizations? Are we going to reduce pension remittances? What about hospital insurance coverages that we offer our employees? Are we going to manage that? What about their leave days? Some will continue coming to the office. Be organized. It's another attribute of a leader that is leading with integrity. It is imperative that you stay organized, especially amidst chaos today. There must always be a schedule and a structured approach to your projects and plans. If you have projects that are ongoing, have a structure, have a plan, have tasks that are well organized and for everybody to be able to define what it is that they are doing. Network. How are you going to be able to keep yourself connected to other people within your same industry? How do you connect with your fellow HR professionals, with your fellow CEOs? Make sure that you are staying competitive, yet within a crisis. You don't only thrive and survive because you're the fittest and you are bold, but you have got to ensure that you deal with initiatives that you are managing. You are not waiting. Empathy, empathizing with your employees, empathizing with the country, empathizing with the world we are living in today, empathizing with your suppliers. Some you may not afford to pay them today, but how are you making them comfortable and assured that you shall surely pay them? Soft is the new hard. You know, empathy is considered a feminine attribute, but it is not. It's quite complex. It's an attribute that is considered weak, but it is the most required attribute of today. See the world through the eyes of others and provide support. The other day in this country of Kenya, a lady in Mombasa was cooking stones for her children. How can one not empathize with such? A leader understands differing perspectives and needs and work, and you are socially sensitive. You know, your employees are working from home. Some are living in an apartment with relatives, about 4 of them. They only have a 2-bedroom house, but they need to work and they deliver on certain projects. They have children that they are homeschooling. How do you empathize and make sure that you don't make calls to them at 7:30 in the morning because they are busy making breakfast for the family? Being tactful and perceptive is important as part of empathy, as an attribute of a leader that is leading with integrity. Appreciate your employees. You know, it's an important source of motivation. Some are getting very exhausted and tired. Just this week, I met a truck driver of Farmer's Choice. They supply sausages and breakfast meals around the country. And they had blocked me as I was driving out. And I said, oh, please, can you move your car a bit? He said, yeah, I will move. And then he said, you know, I may look like I am drunk, but I'm simply extremely tired. So appreciate those kind of people when they're exhausted. Do you have the ability to listen attentively? Listen to the things that you cannot hear anybody say, their body language. Have self-belief that you are going to navigate through the current crisis Have personal happiness, create personal happiness, lead a life of influence and contentment. Be happy even when the situation looks very difficult, like right now, even when you are very, very afraid. Have a vision and see possibilities beyond COVID-19. How do you manage your impression as a leader? Impression management. The leader understands the importance of being seen as favorable to your employees, to your stakeholders. Don't look for empty popularity by doing that which everybody will be excited about, but do things that will support and help others. Loyalty, responsibility, being truthful, being accountable, being self-aware. You have got to practice that which you preach. That's part of integrity. You have to make sure that you set a good example to your employees, to your stakeholders, to everybody that interacts with you. Remember, your behaviors are small examples to your team. And no example is more obvious about your integrity muscles than being on time all the time. Your teams are watching you. And that's what integrity is about. I would want to stop at that because my time has run out, but it's a big topic. How can you lead with integrity while assuring your employees, your stakeholders, your colleagues, your networks that you will be there for them no matter what, and you will do the right thing all the time?
Super. Thank you so much, Dorcas. Well articulated. Leading with integrity has been considered one of the top quality as Dorcas presented to us. And also creating personal happiness and leading by example is what we're able to show to our employees, and also share those conversations, as Stuart had pointed earlier on, of how to lead during this current pandemic. I've seen leaders shedding off their salaries in terms of sharing that agenda of we also understanding that this situation is also impacting everyone. So thank you so much, Dorcas. We would like to bring your ideas and thoughts during the Q&A. Over to that, I would want to invite the next speaker, that is Nabil. I can see Nabil is eager and waiting to go. So Nabil Senyonga is my next speaker. He's joining us from UAE. He's an accelerate business growth consultant and facilitator. Nabil is a senior held senior leadership positions and L&D in leading hospitality groups, and consults as a facilitator in the Middle East and African-based clients in diverse range of industry. Nabil lives in Dubai, where he's moved after spending time in Egypt and in Uganda. During the last 20 years, he has held many leadership positions in the L&D, and he's joining us this particular afternoon in terms of sharing with us on a topic on managing high-performing teams currently and post-crisis. Over to you, Nabil.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm going to be actually sharing with you. Sorry. Okay. I'm a people's person. So definitely when I was asked to participate in the session, I chose one of the programs that are very close to my heart. And it's about how do we manage high-performing team post-crisis. But before we do the post-crisis, I just wanted us to look, just to take a couple of steps back to the current situation. Do we actually have high-performing team, and what would be their characteristics? Normally, there's a story that is shared in training programs about the geese and how they fly in V formation, and usually that is a sign of how do they manage as a team to go from one side of the world to the other, flying together and not leaving any sick or tired geese behind. We've often heard this as being one of the characteristics of a high-performing team. So if we are to look at currently, if we have a high-performing team, what would they look like? The main thing that they need to have a common purpose. They need to have effective processes. They need to have excellent communication. They need to have accepted leadership and even changing leadership at some stages. They need to have a very clear roles about responsibilities about what they're actually doing. If we have this sort of cycle and we look at it and we look at our team and how they're performing and how this is a checklist against each one of them, this lets us know whether there is actually a high-performing team in place or not. Now we come to how do we move from chaos to extraordinary performance? We already know that we live in a world that is ever changing. As a matter of fact, I mentioned it in one of my other webinars that the only thing that is constant in life, or one of the only constant in life, is change. So change will always be happening. What do we need to do? Usually leaders find a little bit challenging, as if change has come all of a sudden, or the chaos has come all of a sudden. Maybe with the COVID-19 has had a far or a further impact than any of the other ones, but there are always going to be these kind of challenges that are going to be facing us around the world. One of the things we notice that usually there is not a crisis team in place, and that is one of the biggest setbacks of managing a crisis or even managing post-crisis, because having the team in place as it governs the team functionality, it helps create the norms of how the work gets done. What is the distribution of power? What's the distribution of power and how it happens within the team? How are going to be the communication patterns? The orientation as well to the stakeholders, the people who are responsible, and what's actually happening, including as well working style. If you don't have a team in place that is governing or that is ensuring that this is actually happening, then forget about the nonsense of having a high-performing team. So the challenges that comes in is, even though that you may be having a crisis, is there are some four challenges that come across very strongly. One is that the leadership, some of them become overbearing in the sense that I'm a hero. I should be taking all of it. I will be taking decision. I'll be making this happen. And in doing this, he sort of negates all the effort that is being put in by the other team members. And at the end of the day, you only have one decision maker, and in his absence, work doesn't get done. In doing so, some blind spots and biases starts coming in place, whereby if the leader does not is not aware of what is actually happening, then some things may be blindsiding him, and as well as he may be going for specific solutions because we've been through this before, that's the way we see it, that's the way we want to do it. Micropolitics, whereby there are politics that are constantly happening at work. And even though that we tend to push it aside and we say it's okay when in a crisis the politics are going to be resolved, they're going to go away, actually the crisis makes them actually exacerbate and grow further. And then at the end of the day, we end up having sort of a tunnel vision, and we end up with mental fatigue. The behaviors that should happen from leadership in terms of crisis is that decide with speed over precision. We need to make sure that we're taking the decision fast, even though we may not be precise. We need to adapt boldly. There are certain things that we may need to adapt with. The word agility was mentioned a little bit further, and I'm going to mention it again. If we are not that agile to adapt with what's happening around us, we are going to struggle. There is the concept as well about reliably deliver. We need to constantly be delivering. People, when we say we're going to deliver after this time, we need to be able to see the delivery accordingly. And last but not least, if the leader is not constantly engaging his team for impact, and we mean by engagement is about creating an experience for them, making them aware of, we are there for you during tough times, even during good times, and we want to know your well-being, and it's not just about engaging because this is a box that we want to tick at the end of the day. So as we move on to the post-crisis era, what is it that we need to do? There are going to be some 5 things that are going to be highlighted. However, this is one thing that comes into mind. Is this sacred corporate ritual maybe coming to an end? We know that we constantly go through strategic planning cycle where we understand what's happening around us, we look at the trends, we assess the SWOT, we validate our mission and vision, we develop the goals and strategies and actions, execute, and then we assess and adjust. This has been ongoing during normal times, and companies have been actually struggling with it, or a majority of company based on some of the information that comes in. There is always something that is missing. But now in terms of the crisis, we can see that this is not going to happen in the same direction, but is it going to go away? This is something that is going to be left to be seen. We are living in a VUCA world. Some of you may have come across the terminology. We have heard it before, we've seen it before, and this is a world that is constantly volatile, unpredictable, complex, and full of ambiguity. But there is actually a new VUCA, and this is what allows us to, even though that there will always be the challenge of having this ambiguity, complexity, uncertainty, and volatility, we can actually change it to what is the vision that we are working with towards our next step? How are we going to understand what is expected from us to deliver? How clear are the roles and responsibility of each and everyone who is expected to deliver? And how agile is us? Because the agility is going to be required because we are living in an ever-changing world, and we need to be agile as we set our objectives. It's not written in stone. It is going to be changed when it does need to be changed. What are now going to be the 5 new operating models? Titans to teams. Basically, we have organizational hierarchy that has been in work ever since we have known and seen it actually in possession. It's actually got a lot of organization to grow. But at some stage, having this hierarchy is not really helping it. It proved to be against the growth of an organization on the long run, even though that it has worked on getting them to globalization and making billions of money. But however, they're discovering that it is actually impacting us. If you don't get people to start working in teams where everybody is really clear about what they are doing, and we mentioned it a little bit earlier in terms of a high-performing team, that's the norm. The leader's role then will become how are they creating the ecosystem for the team accordingly. Second thing is managing the unexpected. There will always be unexpected things that are coming up, and we need to be agile with it. The third thing is, when do we know when to hire, and when do we know when not to hire? When do we hire internally, and when do we hire externally? And that's why the segmentation of work and workforce needs to be taken into consideration. The last 2, we need to start looking at how we're going to have a sharper focus in terms of our core business activities. What are the tasks that are determined for the success of the organization, going back to the core, and how are we going to manage our performance accordingly? So they need to be a sharper focus on the performance. Just putting it in summarize, using agile teams, bring rigor to the management of the unexpected, use contingent labor, focus the time and treasure on what matters most to the success, equip leaders to direct, engage, and inspire virtual teams, and equip employees to commit, collaborate, and connect with their peers. There are some essentials, 5 essentials as I'd like to call them. Any team must work based on trust, because in the absence of trust, the conflicts will become personal. People will not be able to be committed. Accountability will not be there, and results will not be achieved. Usually I ask people before they go away is they need to have some sort of an action plan. So what will yours be? What do you need to stop doing in terms of team performance? What do you need to start doing? What do you need to continue doing? And with that, I yield the floor back to Joseph, waiting for questions.
Thank you so much, Nabil. Excellent indeed. This is your favorite topic in terms of managing high-performing employees, and definitely quite informative. I've loved the idea of the new VUCA: vision, understanding, clarity, and agile. And definitely that's where we are going in terms of doing business, managing our talent, and also our businesses. So quite insightful. We'll definitely also want to hear your insights also on the same when you come to Q&A. Thank you so much. And over to the next presenter, that is Gloria Tibakunirwa. And Gloria, she is joining us from Kampala, Uganda. She has over 20 years of experience as a strategic HR practitioner in local and regional organizations, with 15 years at the C-suite level, currently consulting partner with Milele Solutions Limited. She's also the current Vice President of Human Resources Managers Association of Uganda. And this afternoon, she'll be joining us to share with us a topic on digitizing your operations and creating a culture of innovation in your business. Over to you, Gloria, if you're there.
Yeah, thank you, Joseph.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Joseph, for giving me the opportunity to participate in this webinar. And I'd like to thank everybody that has come in. We're very grateful. To begin with, what is bringing us here together? It's an issue of health and safety, which resides in the HR space. And what is driving everything we're doing? It's social distance. Look at 5 areas that I think HR practitioners should really focus on. But before I go there, we as HR practitioners to us, and to be able to also make the right decisions, we also need to sharpen our saw. We need to research a lot. The previous speakers have also spoken about it, and they've said seek help where you need help. Practitioners, consult your fellow HR practitioners so that you can make the right decisions, because they are affecting people. Now, again, when we talk about the skills audit, for you to be able to make the right decisions, to advise rightly, one of the things that we need to do is do a skills audit. There's a change in business processes. New products are coming up. Organizations whose businesses have gone down have decided to go into different businesses. The job roles of our employees have changed. If we look at a salesperson and an investment executive, their role was mainly going out in the field. But because of social distancing, they can't go out anymore. Again, businesses are not making money. If we look at banks, they were supposed to bring in credit loans, but that is not happening. So what is happening to the roles of the different employees? If, for example, the salespeople and the loans officers were supposed to grow business, and that was their #1 KPI, is it still the #1 KPI? Probably not. Probably it is retention. They need to retain the clients that they have on board. Do they have the skills to manage customer relationships? Probably not. Of course, as HR, the first thing we did was get rid of the training budget. We need to think twice and say, do we need the budget during this time of crisis and post-crisis, because we are planning for the future employees of the organization. Now, to do a skills audit, of course, what we're going to do, what are the changes in my business? What do the new job roles look like? What skills are needed to run the business today? What skills are available? What are the skills gaps that you find out? And how do you want to close these gaps? Of course, usually the interventions will be recruitment, either layoffs, upskilling, but you need to have information to support the decisions that you're going to take to management. When we join a job, the first thing they give you is your job profile. So what are job profiles looking like? We have the future of work. When I joined consultancy, I kept telling my clients that I'm going to work virtually. I've been working home for a year, but most of them were not buying it. And they would say, no, you come and sit in my office. But I insisted that I am a virtual worker and I work from home. Now, COVID has brought this. For the organizations that thought it is not possible, it is now very possible. So as HR, we need to embrace the future of work. I'm going to go through a few of them. And as we're writing our policies and reviewing our manuals, we need to ensure that we put these aspects within our manuals so that when the opportunity comes, we can lean on these particular new work arrangements. The gig economy. Most of us are going to lay off people because our companies are not doing any business. But what can you do for them? As you exit them, you can give them options. You can recruit them again as freelancers. as people's contracts end, you could put them on part-time. Let's embrace the future of work and the options that we have out there. And again, because companies are hard on money, some of these options, like freelancing, do not need certain benefits paid to the employee. We have an ageless workforce. We can look at all our presidents, very young. Recently, our own Ugandan president was doing push-ups. When you look at Trump, you'd think he's 40 years, very energetic. So people are living longer. How are we going to utilize this ageless workforce? Currently, we're having challenges and we need a lot of expertise. How can you fall on them? Consultancy, that's an area that was also scraped off most budgets. We're dealing with very complex tasks. Can you afford not to use consultants? On the other hand, I think consultants also need to revise their pricing and be a bit innovative. Ergonomics, that's an area that is in HR. What have we done? Our employees are now working remotely. Have we thought of this area? We do not want a situation where our employees are going to come back and they have back aches, they have rib aches, and then the employer needs to incur costs for injury. We need to look into this area and learn what it's all about. I can give an example. If someone's working from home, the table they're using, their hands have to be at 90 degrees. When they are seated at that table and their laptop is placed in front of them, their eyes have to be at the same level of the top of the laptop. This is the kind of information we should be giving our employees as value add. Artificial intelligence is another area. I know in some countries they'll say, well, we could be saying, no, not here. But if we look at drones in Rwanda, they use drones to transport medicine up country. For those who have traveled recently, if you go into the airport, there are no longer ladies, beautiful ladies to check you in and tag your baggage. You have to do that yourself with a kiosk in front of you, giving you instructions. So all these people that are losing jobs, either due to artificial intelligence or even the crisis, what happens? So as HR, that takes me to the next point. As HR, we have been having very rigid policies and procedures where we do not allow people to work. As long as they're working for us, we need to change that and ensure that they too can be able to do some activity on the side to make sure that they get some passive income so that when they lose any job post-employment, they have something to fall on. Let us also be empathetic and ensure that we give them the entrepreneurial skills that they need and also managing their personal finances. Of course, during this COVID, we have been able to see that our employees are really very poor at managing their finances. Talking about digitization, we all can't run about it. Stuart has just talked about LinkedIn. As companies, do you have a LinkedIn account? Do you have a Twitter account? You need to be visible to be able to engage and attract employees and also customers. We've looked at the big brands that are on Twitter and we know how they are managing their customers online. We need to give our employees digital skills, e-learning for business. It's real time. They can do it from anywhere at home. Let's embrace LinkedIn Learning and Udemy. Then for those that can afford to develop your own platforms, Thinkific and Teachable are very good platforms. You can go and develop your platform, especially those people who have in-house trainings. It is very easy. You're still going to pay a similar cost like you are now paying for Zoom. We can't run away from digitization. Virtual meetings and social events. If I talk about social events, enhancing your team, you can have a cup of coffee, you all log on and talk about what's happening, what happened today, and also introduce your family members. That's another way to keep your team together. I'd like to talk a little bit more on the Microsoft SharePoint. This is a platform that has the HR portal. We're all using Microsoft. And as we go digital and have our employees working offsite, this is a platform that can be helpful. With Microsoft SharePoint, the HR portal, we are able to centralize our storage of data. We can build an intranet where we communicate to staff and put news. We can have a blog for our staff. Activity. So on the Microsoft SharePoint, this is very possible. We are able to schedule shifts. We are able to schedule leave. We are able to monitor onboarding, automate emails, enroll training, and also carry out surveys. We also need to embrace online tools which can help us to do our HR delivery, like the Google Forms. I'm sure many of you have used them to do mini surveys. The Google Sheets also help in time and attendance. And then I myself do things myself, the DIY, do it yourself, graphic design. Our companies are now hard on money, so we need to be very innovative, okay? We're now going to, the newspapers are not in circulation, so we have to advertise our openings online. So there's a Canva is a very good platform that is free where you can go and design your flyers and share them on the media. If you're not the kind of person who does it yourself, you can use freelance services on Fiverr where you can go and have a flyer done for you for $5, $10. Now we're talking about where health and safety. We don't know what's going to happen. The COVID might actually come, but to enable our staff remain healthy, one of the things we can give them are Fitbits. For those that can afford it, we're giving money out to governments, but what can we do for our staff? Because these Fitbits, we know, they can measure how long you've walked in that day. You can also measure cholesterol and a lot. But as we go digital, we also have to remember that sometimes it can be very exhaustive being online. And like they say, offline is the new luxury. When you're offline, you really feel, I feel good. So once in a while, we need to digital detox or fast on social media. Collaboration. Internally, we need to remove the internal silos in our organizations and promote cross-departmental collaboration to be able to work together. The Microsoft SharePoint I talked about also enables collaboration. Zoom also, we have the virtual meetings also enable collaboration. And then collaboration workplaces, maybe not now, but in future, if we get back to the offices, they are very good to encourage brainstorming. I'd like to focus on this other collaboration outside the workplace. As HR, like I mentioned at the beginning, let's make sure we take care of ourselves. We need to consult a lot. Let's consult with our colleagues as we go through this pandemic. We need to make very many hard decisions. Consult colleagues in your industry, in your region. As you write policy, find out what are you doing on arranging shift work for your employees. How is the remote working doing? Let us also collaborate with the telecoms, because now we are remote working. Those who can, how do we as HRs approach the telecoms to ensure that home data solutions are given, which are cost effective? As HR, we need to be seen because this is our space. So our employers need to see us as being proactive and not waiting for the business people to go and make these negotiations. We can collaborate with the insurance companies for online counseling. Staff are losing people. You can imagine we are losing our own relatives, but you have to mourn yourself because you cannot have your friends with you. People's spouses are losing jobs. So we do not expect them to be very productive, but we need to make sure they have the online counseling. In the first world, the telemedicine services, okay? And then also we need to collaborate with the ministries so that we can get a bit of the chunk of the money to implement our HR information systems. Lastly, we're very good at planning. We're very good at implementing, but we're very bad at monitoring and assessing initiatives. I'll talk about the remote working. We've put this in place. But are we assessing this? We should be assessing it on a quarterly basis. We could ask questions like, what is your biggest challenge? Is it loneliness, interruptions, low data, inadequate furniture, power cuts? What are the best parts of working at home? Is it the fact that there is no commuting time? Is it the work-life balance? Is it the increase in productivity? And then on the wellness side, we need to also be asking our employees questions so that we know where their health, emotional, social, and financial wellness stands. And lastly, I was listening to BBC yesterday, and they were talking about wellness assessments. And because it's a tough time, we need to ask the tough questions. The person said that in their wellness tool, they have changed and put a statement that says, if you got COVID, are you likely to live or die? That tough questions we should be asking to be able to assess and know how to improve our initiatives and how to help our employees cope. Thank you so much, Joseph.
Thank you, Gloria. I'm sure we will definitely need to hear more from you, especially on digital intelligence and how to adapt and promote the future of workplace now, given the current pandemic. Over to the last presentation for the day so that we enter into the Q&A. This is still Dorcas. She will be sharing with us the topic on how to manage change during and post and past pandemic. So Dorcas, over to you as we sum up for today's presentation and we enter into the Q&A. Thank you, Gloria, and welcome on board, Dorcas, once again.
Thank you, Joseph. Participants, I hope I am clear, Joseph.
Yes.
And you can see my slide, but I will talk through. How are we going to manage change during the COVID period, which we are in now? First of all, I would like to share with our participants this way, that Corona, we all know, has brought business activities to almost a complete halt. What is essential? Food, the agriculture sector, transport to an extent, the stores where we are buying food. We can no longer travel to business sites to do audits or, just conduct business. Working from home is our new normal. We have been caught unawares. While some have been, have had an opportunity to work from home, it was a choice, but it was not a normal. So we have been caught unawares. Studies have shown that people forget natural disasters rather quickly. And, we are also going to forget COVID-19 very quickly. Once it passes, we will forget it. But it has taught us a few things that, one, the critical interconnectedness of global businesses is a very important thing for us to think about. But does that mean that we push for every country to produce their own products and you trade within yourselves? You have to think about it. After all, in countries today, every country is producing their own masks. I don't remember anybody importing anymore. Countries are rushing through their universities to actually come up and design ventilators because we are all wondering where are we going to get them. There's no travel, there are no planes flying in and out, there's no cargo coming in and out. So every country is almost becoming independent, and that has happened. We have realized we have these capabilities, but also that organizations should become more resilient and have the ability to transform and innovate in the face of a crisis. And that's what most organizations are now grappling with. But also, how can we become more predictive and anticipatory? We must anticipate situations. We must be predictive of what could happen. After all, in 2015, I think Obama did talk about a pandemic in 5 or so years or less. And that has actually just happened. But also, one of the other things in managing this change at this point is to always know that death is sure. Death is sure. If you caught COVID today, you are not sure you will come out. How are your employees thinking about it? Life is short. It's another thing to talk about. But health is wealth. That even if you do not continue with business as you were in the past, if you are healthy by the end of COVID, that's a profit in itself. And I think Jack Ma also talked about that. One of the things to be managed right now during COVID-19 is the working from home. I think this has been talked about so many times, but there's confusion about it. One of the ways working from home and making sure your teams are kept together and making sure you keep the culture of the organization together is to make sure that you create what we call core team time, a time when every team member will be available, and you can have a Zoom meeting, a Zoom coffee time. And I think Gloria already mentioned that. Having a core team time will mean that every one of your employees will free their time from other domestic engagements to be there for the work and for collaboration in that sense. Create a core team time. Number two, in my view of this, is that organizations should surely try as much as possible to delay layoffs. You can delay layoff of employees and reduce their work time to a few days in a week or a few hours. The point here is for us as HR professionals to guide our business leaders and let them understand it's more important for employees to be meaningfully engaged in a decent job and earning something to keep food on the table. That is the most important matter to manage today. Secondly, reduce salary, but have conversation with your employees. I have found the resistance of employees in this country and other countries, and I've discussed this with various leaders, that employees are resisting a cut in their salaries. What is the better? Not having a salary cut and losing a job completely because you will be laid off and go home? Or would you rather continue to place a livelihood and a meal on your table? So we need to have those conversations. Again, provide tools for your employees. You know, last week I had somebody ask me, or she told me that at the moment, employees are not commuting to work, so they have made a saving. So employers should not be the ones to provide them with bundles for internet access. Please remember that it is the responsibility of the employer to provide working tools. And at this point in time, a working tool is Wi-Fi or internet access so that employees can be able to work and meet your objectives. And therefore, it's important. And so when we start saying employees are not commuting, and we are forgetting that they're also now making their tea at home, having their food at home, spending more time at home, wear and tear of their seat they're using at home. So we've got to think this differently. Job redesigning, that we cannot have all employees at work, but we can have them come in shifts. So that is also something for us to think about as we work with our employees. Did I lose you all? Joseph, am I there?
You're there. It's only that the screen share was not there, but it's fine. We are following through. Thank you. We're able to follow through.
Okay. I'd rather we just follow through so I don't struggle much. Another of the insights I would like to share is communication. I think this has been belabored, is the most important thing today. Communicate, communicate, communicate. One, because we do not want fake news with our employees. Don't want employees waking up and thinking your business has closed down. No, you don't want to see that. Fake news. But not only fake news, but also what we call infodemics. Infodemics is a situation where there's an overabundance of information. It can be accurate or not accurate. And that alone can lead to information constipation. Personally, I almost got constipated with information and screens and the WhatsApp messages and the videos until I said, oh, I don't want to hear anything about COVID-19 anymore. I was getting confused until I had a little itch on my throat and I thought I was COVID positive, but I wasn't. It was just the usual flu. Are your employees feeling the same? Online collaboration, I think that has been talked about already. Policy redefinition and realignment now, a policy on remote working, redefine who your essential workers are, who are not essential. Remember, you are also going to start experiencing a slowdown in hiring, a slowdown in positions produced in the market by the economy. And so with the slow in recruitment, because businesses are not doing well, and so you cannot afford to recruit a lot of staff, you are going to be forced to use short-term employees, consultants, and I think Gloria already talked about that. Are you prepared for that? But also something very important in managing this change is security of your data, proprietary data. How are you protecting your data? I think already Gloria mentioned about internet, where your employees can go in and access that information from there. If employees are using personal devices for your office work, is your data secured and protected? So you're going to make sure that the infrastructure for your data can protect that which belongs to your organization. Managing this change also requires keeping a positive attitude. Every facet of our lives has really changed. It's a punch on our face, but it's also a good chance for us to slow down, take stock, check how your family has been doing. Some of us have been leaving the houses at 6 and we come back at 9 in the night. We are tired, we sleep. We don't even know the corners of our houses anymore. So we can also take a breath and slow down that way. But also, the other thing that we've got to think about is ensuring that any breach of protection of our data is dealt with quickly and very fast. But this is not the time to start disciplining employees online, but it's also a time for you to start rethinking how to review the performance objectives you have set for your employees. Remember, you set performance objectives and appraisals will be coming up, and you will realize there was COVID, and everybody will tell you now you can't assess me because COVID happened. Is a good time for managers to start reviewing that. Please remind your managers to start doing that. But also enhance the capability of your managers to manage remotely. Let them not wake up and make a call to an employee at 8 in the morning. They are at home, they could be making breakfast. Let them not start calling at 1 o'clock. They are cooking lunch for their families. So again, call tea time, set schedules when your managers will schedule with their employees, their direct reports, so that they agree, and check in with them regularly, but at a set schedule, so that nobody feels that this is becoming difficult for them. But post-COVID, what do we anticipate? Work from home is not going to stop. It will scale down. It might scale down, but we certainly need a policy around that. We will need to make sure we build infrastructure for a virtual workplace. But some organizations may want to use, off-site workplaces. Off-site workplaces is a place like in Kenya. I think it's called Ikigai, where people go and you can do your work. And when you are done, you go away, and some also leave and go away. Alternative work site. But also remember, washing of hands will just not stop, even post-COVID. We are now used to washing hands. These small things do matter. So you may have to check out where your employees will be washing hands constantly, or sanitizers, or the soap, and take care of that expense as in your organization. But again, still, even into the future, employees will have concerns about their survival and whether their jobs will continue to survive. But also at the moment, remember, your employees are also worried about their jobs. Do they have these jobs? Are they going to lose jobs? How is the business doing? Please communicate to them, give them assurance, give them information so that they know what you as a business are dealing with. And also be open with your staff about that. I think as I finish on that, I wanted to say that post-COVID also, one of the things that we may have got to think about is the tools of work that we'll have to give our employees. But at the moment, it's also important for our HR professionals and leaders to manage productivity and engagement peaks. If you're extroverted and you live alone in an apartment and there's nobody to talk to and laugh with, you can actually sink into depression and have a mental illness out of simply that. So check on those employees of yours that are extroverted and cannot cope in a place that is so quiet. So virtual coffee talks, happy hours are things that we can do. Recently, we held a birthday party of a friend in the US, and it was a Zoom birthday party, and we were about 40 people. And we then had a toast to our birthday lady. And so you can actually continue to celebrate birthdays and keep that culture and the engagement going with your employees. I think the other thing that we might see into the future is that more people will want to spend more time working from home. Your employees may decide that they are starting businesses and they're not coming to work for you anymore. So anticipate that the employees who may not come back to work for you anymore. And so start thinking how to do that. For us in HR, we also have got to start thinking which metrics and analytics will be important for us, and start thinking through which metrics can I put in place and compute now and derive analytics out of it so that you can deal with any shortages, misallocations, instability as an organization. All of these things are going to help you as an organization and as a HR professional in managing your own teams. And Joseph, I want to end at that for now.
Thank you.
So that we get into questions.
Thank you so much, Dorcas. That was very insightful and much needed in terms of how do we manage change during these particular times of difficulty and also lockdown, and businesses have been stopped. And I have so many questions already been thrown in. And as we started, these are some of the questions that we had already tried to see how best are they coming in based on various stakeholders out there. So some of the questions which have already been pipelined here. So I want us to take this time to discuss and ask you, the panelists, to give insights on the same. I'll try in between the discussion to bring one or two of the attendees for this webinar to this evening to just shed in some light or ask a question. So I want you guys to raise your hands, those who want to come in and ask questions. I'll bring you to the panel and perhaps you can have conversation. So I have one of my panelists. I don't know if Dixon is there. He's been silent on the background. I also have Nabil. I also have Gloria, and I now have Dixon. Dorcas Wanaina, who's finished presenting. So the first question which I want us to tackle, and then I'll go to the questions which were already asked on the Q&A section. The first question I want us to deal with is, how do you manage self while leading teams during this difficult time, and also manage yourself? It's a very good question, and I thought let's start with that, and then I'll jump into the questions that were already asked on the Q&A segment. So over to you, Dixon. Let me start with you so that I can bring your face to the panel.
Thank you, Joseph, for that question. How do we manage self while leading teams during this difficult time? I believe it means this difficult time. I think this is one of the challenges of being a leader. Leading is all about being spontaneous and also being proactive. Nobody actually planned for this COVID-19. Most of the organizations do not have their contingency plans for this COVID-19, and as such, it's spontaneous for everybody. This is where we're going to differentiate great leaders from the others that are not great. So I think the first thing to do is that we need to be deliberate about managing self. You will know that as a leader, the teams are expecting you, just like a parent or as a father and mother. What do you do when there's hunger or difficulty in the house, or when there's a challenge in the house? You don't hands off and say, oh my God, we are finished. The house is gone into crisis. You have to compose yourself, be deliberate about it, put checks and balances, and try to make sure that you are still relevant to the organization and be there for your employee, support them. One of the is to constantly be in touch with your employees, and like Dorcas has said, constantly communicate. And just tell yourself that I'm here to function, and people are looking onto me. Therefore, I have to be deliberate. I have to prepare myself. I have to psych up myself, motivate myself to say, hey, we're going to get out of this. It's not what is lost, but what we do with what is left. People are looking onto me. I'm going to provide them solution. When we have a positive psychology to this, it rubs off on our employees. So that's the first place I want to make a suggestion for leaders to help, manage themselves during this difficult time. Thank you.
Can I add to that?
Yes, please go on.
It's very important to maintain your personal happiness lead a life of contentment, and say that whatever the current circumstances, we are going to move into the future without fear. You know, it's not just about the crisis, it's also when somebody loses a job and circumstances change, they're going to be afraid. But when you are positive and looking into the future positively, you know that this will pass and things will change. We can never be fruitful all the time. We have different seasons in life. You have a season of rain, a season of winter, and summer comes in. So some seasons in our lives are low. Sometimes you have a job, sometimes you don't. COVID has come and COVID will go. But maintain positivity, but also work out, you know, do exercises. You know, these days I even wake up early and I work out all the time. And please take a shower before you sit to work from home, because then you refresh. You want blood to circulate into your brain, then you can be positive. Otherwise, even through a screen, you can project low energy, actually. When you have low energy, then you start thinking frustration. But when you are psyched up with energy, amidst the difficulty, you've got to say, I am not under ventilator. I am alive today. So you've got to keep that going forward.
Thank you so much, Dorcas, and very insightful. The next question, which I thought was also good, I'll combine, is from Johannes Matsingore. He asked, balancing integrity with agility can be a challenge in crisis. Can integrity, yes, can integrity be situational, or it has to be always there? So can integrity be situational, or it has to be always there? Just one comment, perhaps. Dorcas?
Just
Or
for
Dixon?
me, either you have integrity or you don't have integrity. It's just going to be there. You have it, there's no partial integrity. It's either you have it, you don't have it. The integrity is required no matter the situation. The integrity is that you are going to be authentic, you're going to be who you say you are, you're going to do it right. So it's not a matter of situation. You don't bend yourself. You don't change your nature because of the circumstances. You remain in the state of integrity no matter the situation. That's my take. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dixon. I just wanted one comment, and I throw the next question as...
Joseph, allow me give an example, please. I know.
Okay, go on.
Just one comment.
Yes.
For example, realistically in HR, sometimes, you know, a business leader would say, you know, let us pretend that all this is have on unpaid leave so that we do not remit, you know, statutory deductions, whether it's NSSF, NHIF, or pension, okay? Yeah. Now, we cannot do that. Now, whether the situation is bad or not, like Dixon said, we will do the right thing no matter what. You'd rather apply for delayed remittances, and the regulators will know that, and that you can pay it later. But let's not play games with integrity. We've got to really do the right thing all the time. We do our best.
Thank you, Dorcas. Any other person? I want to throw the next one to Nabil. Any comments? This is a question which was asked to Gloria, but I want to throw to Gloria and Nabil. And the question was, where do you Generation Y come in terms of ageless workforce, and how should we ensure inclusivity with the current high levels of unemployment? So I want to throw this to Nabil and Gloria, and then I'll invite Beverly and Yeko, who have brought them to the panel, to ask a question or perhaps to comment. So over to you, Nabil and Gloria.
Thank you, Joseph. Until Gloria appears, I don't see her right now, but very quickly.
I'm around.
Okay, all right. Okay. With the new generation that are coming in, actually there's a new trend that is accompanying them. And as the new generation, they actually don't want to work, they don't want to have contractual obligation. They actually want to have a freelance kind of approach. Let's agree on a set of deliveries. What is it that you want from us? And we'll deliver it to you, and you pay me based on that. That's what we have been noticing actually as a growing trend. And this is one of the things I covered during the last webinar. I still see that the generation gap is going to be widens further now that as more people are going to go into retirement, but then as the new generation that are coming in who are very much technology based, they want things that are, I don't want to see you, but just send me things online, just send me things and I'll deliver it accordingly. My take is that they want to work based on freelance approach. I don't know, my esteemed colleague, what would Gloria say based on that?
I agree. Generation Y, that's why I was telling, we as HR practitioners need to be open. In Uganda alone, our president keeps saying that more than 70% of the people in Uganda are below the age of 30. So one thing we know, and if you look at Andela, the company Andela, I think it has defined the way the young generation works. If you look at the workspace is arranged, the time they come to work in, how late they can work, they have options of working home. And for anyone who has engaged most of the people who are doing computer programming, doing these applications, they're young people. But if you have engaged one before, you know how they behave. If they're going to be working with you and they're your programmer, they'll want to do quite a number of gigs on the side. So how are you going to engage these young people? I think our work arrangements need to be flexible for them. Otherwise, we will have challenges getting them on board and keeping them.
Thank you, Gloria. And I don't know if is Beverly and Yeko there. I can see Yeko.
Yes, please. Yeko is around. Yeah.
Tell us where you're joining us from, and perhaps a question or a comment.
I can hear you, sir. Thank you so much. My name is Nkono Yeko. I'm joining in from Uganda. I'm a principal at Gombe Junior School. I have a question about how to manage at this time. I'm working in a company where one of the measures being proposed is an administrative restructuring, whereby we are looking at merging of administrative roles. So my question is, what would be the best approach of merging the different administrative posts or the different administrative roles, so as to come up and the company progresses without any other hardships thereafter? Thank you, please.
Thank you, Yeko. This is open to the panelists.
Yes, please.
I'll take a tab on that. If I got the question, the participant talks about administrative restructuring or margin of roles. And this is certainly geared towards a reduction of the number of employees in the workplace. And this is in most workplaces. You find that actually employees we have duplication of roles. People we have 5 people, they are handling the same roles and responsibilities that actually one person can handle. How do we then handle this kind of restructuring? I think first things first, what are the core roles of that organization? What's the core business of that organization? Can one person handle those roles and responsibilities comfortably, competently, consistently, and meet the targets required of that position? It does sound as if it's a situation where there's a duplication of roles that is unnecessary, and so you have so many bodies handling similar tasks that really cannot constitute a job per se. That is what I would share as my insights towards that. And I think for me, that is okay. But those that you're taking those responsibilities from, are you laying them off? Are you redeploying them? Are you giving them different responsibilities? You've got to think about these questions. Also remember, do not give somebody a job that is too much, that they cannot handle within an 8-hour shift, and they might get overworked. You might get your staff burning out.
Thank you, Dorcas. Any other comment? And thank you, Yeko, for for sharing with us those insights. I hope those were well answered. I have Pamela and Gitonga. Before I jump back to the questions, I don't know if they are available to ask. I can see Sammy is ready. Tell us where you're joining us from and question or comment. Hello, Sammy. Can you hear us?
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, this is Mulindo Same calling from Uganda. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Okay. My question or observation is about collaboration vis-a-vis the syndrome of competition. You know, some employers and organizations or companies, they fear this aspect of competing. And I think that by collaboration, one would be using the opportunity to outcompete another. How best this one can be handled? I'm Director, Gombe Education Service in Uganda.
Thank you, Sami. Very good question. Collaboration is the way forward. How do we manage collaboration in the emergence of competition and also regulations as well currently in most of the organizations and public sector? So this is open to as well to any panelist to support.
I think for collaboration, it's an area that is really emerging, and it's a culture that needs to be built over time. And what encourages collaboration, like when I talked about the collaborative workspaces, it's how you arrange the way your employees sit, for example, so that they are able to continuously consult each other. The other way collaboration is done, some organizations have a specific room where people can just go and brainstorm. They give them a specific, the top companies, blue chip companies, they'll give them time to go sit in this room, maybe on a particular Thursday afternoon, and brainstorm. So that way, on a particular issue that the company wants to look at or a project, that way people tend to work together and not, so it is the way you arrange the office, the way you create initiatives that give people a chance to always be together and work on solutions, try to get solutions together for an organization, and not necessarily working alone in their departments, yeah, or as individuals in one particular department. So I think it's a culture that one has to build over time in an organization.
Thank you, Gloria. Any other panel? Yes, Dixon. Yes.
Well, I think in terms of collaboration, like I'm hearing Samit says, I'm looking at it from the perspective of, he said, competition. I think we're moving into the new normal where organizations need to put their caps and find out how we can reduce our costs. And one of those areas we're going to be looking at is the area of collaboration. For example, let me give you a typical example. Now we are all a lot of companies are working from home, and I will pray that this pandemic restriction period will be over. And a lot of organizations will need to ask themselves the question, should it be that every role should be coming to the central office to come and work? How can we differentiate roles that will be done through remote working and roles that can be done, resident physically in the office? So organization maybe start thinking like, thinking along the line like co-location. Can we share office building with another organization, or do we need to hire the same whole building to be able to work? Can we reduce some costs? There's a lot of ways we can collaborate, even in the terms of our IT and the internet infrastructure. If we are a smaller organization, we can actually look at organization that has the same kind of value that we have and see how we can collaborate, especially for the fact that he is talking from the public sector. It would be great for government agencies to sit down together and have some brainstorming on how best they can cope with these challenges that the COVID has brought along our way. Days is to say, what do I have that you don't have, and what do you have that I don't have? How do we put our resources together and share the cost of a particular solution? Instead, it can be IT, it could be video conferencing, it could be anything. So I think it's a situation where we need to put our thinking caps and begin to look at those organizations that we can collaborate to reduce our cost and bring up our efficiency. And like, you can be the organization that can start that. Move on, take the first bold step. Go to another organization and find out how can we work together to make our offices and our productivity better. So that way, with the challenges that is going to come post-pandemic, that may be crisis, that may be a kind of recession in most of the organizations. So there will be a need for organizations to put in their thinking caps. And the best way to do is to go around to find out areas of collaboration with other organizations. Thank you.
Thank you, Dixon.
Joseph, can I add to that? Okay. In addition to that, I think if it's collaboration between institutions, it's very important that you sign agreements of confidentiality, sign agreements of what one party can and cannot do and what the other can and cannot do. That way you make sure that you do not collide, that there's no conflict, because you've got to minimize conflict. And therefore you need to get into signed agreements on how that relationship will work, which information is going to be confidential to this institution, whether you came across that information or not, you are not going to share it with another. And so collaboration between institutions is rather a bit different. You've got to get into certain agreements to protect yourself, your information, your product, your service.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That's very insightful. I want to throw the next question, which is on what the delegates asked or the participants asked, and I'll combine this question. There were three of them which are coming up. Are we going to be changing now our KPIs in retro of the current pandemic in terms of managing and evaluating our employees? And also adding on to that, should salaries cuts be negotiated or just implemented for sake of the jobs? Negotiation can take forever in high and unionized environments. So I want perhaps to have Nabil to start with that, and then we can spill over to the next panelist.
Thank you so much, Joseph. One of the challenges that happens is that the management tends to take the decisions of what to do or where to cut costs without consulting or without talking to their staff. And that's what starts creating challenges, because some of the solutions may actually lie with the employee. They might be able to come up with great ideas, not even just of cutting costs, but actually of finding some other unique selling propositions on what the organization can do or go in a different direction that could allow it continuity or even growth. I mean, there will always be crisis, and maybe something even more severe than what COVID has presented to us. We need to be more prepared. If the organization is actually functioning as a successful team, people talk together, leadership has a very clear cascading of what the objectives are and communication of where the vision, where they want to go with, and the employees at the same time, they are sharing upwards as well how they're going to do or how they're going to achieve in terms of that direction, then you should start to be able to see some results. So even when the next crisis hit, people will be more prepared in terms of here's what we're going to do, here's how we're going to proceed. But if people are talking in different side of the valley, then we will constantly be having this problem where cut costs, make people stay at home, make redundancy, merge, or whatever, all these drastic measures that we keep on hearing about.
Thank you, Nabil.
Thank you.
Yep. I would want Dorcas to also perhaps give an insight, Dorcas or Gloria, being from the HR perspective and the associations as well as the institutes managing HR. I would like to hear from you as well.
That's what I would like to add. Confirm that the question is about salary cuts and...
Yes, about salary cuts. How do you go about
now,
that? Yeah.
First and foremost, it's important for us to know that this crisis is so sudden, and there's learning that is happening as we go along. And that's what agility is about, that you are open to learning and unlearning as you go along. As HR professionals and business leaders, you've got to start learning to consult widely. get a legal expert on employment matters to guide you before you start cutting salaries of your staff or reducing salaries of your staff. Number one. Number two, it's important that between a business leader and the HR professionals, they have already assessed and they've done the computation and they know what they can afford and what they cannot afford. It's not reducing salaries for the sake of it. Perhaps your business has been doing well and actually you can afford 100% for the next, like 3 months. But if you can't, then of course start checking out what can we afford. And it can also be a graduated type of salary reduction, so that at lower level, this is the percentage, at a higher level, middle level, because they also earn differently and the brackets are rather different. So that's how you're going to do it. But also share the information with the staff of the reality of your business, because you've got to build trust. When you're deducting a salary of an employee, first thing that comes up is that we cannot trust you, we are doubting you, we don't believe that what you're doing is for our interest. So build the trust and again, trust of your employees so they know that you're doing it from a good space. You are doing it to make sure that they continue to be engaged meaningfully and in decent jobs, and they continue to earn a living for them and their families. And this is sometimes in a context like Africa, where we are sustaining even families back home in our villages, and therefore trust. But consult your legal experts on employment matters. Not every lawyer can give you proper advice. It has to be a lawyer that is well versed with matters of employment. But as HR, we should also have learned some of these things so that we can support our leaders. And that's my perspective on how to handle that.
Thank you, Dorcas. Gloria, any insight perhaps from your end?
I think it has been ably answered. For me, really, as a HR, I would start from the business arm. If the business is not in position to pay salaries, I mean, communication is very important to ensure that employees know what's happening in the organization, and also work with them to make these decisions. But again, like I mentioned in my presentation, if you have to reduce people's salaries, if you have to lay people off, and you really think you'll get back on your feet, it is important to let them know and give them some hope.
Thank you. And I totally agree with you. And also taking an extra arm to talk to the labor laws and the people in charge of labor to find out what is right, so that you don't find ourselves mixing between what the law says. But definitely communication has to be there in terms of balancing the conversation. Last but not least is the question of how do we manage employees while they're working virtually at home, yet this is a new reality for most of the people in Africa. How do we go about that in terms of managing employees? I know this question has been asked in so many different versions, so I decided just to ask it in that format. So how do we manage employees while they're working at home virtually, performance management, etc.? So it's open to any of the panelists. I also want to bring one more person from the audience. Yes, over to you.
Okay, Joseph, like I mentioned, this is a new initiative that we have put in place. I think getting feedback, you'll not get one employee coming to you and giving you information, but HR should be proactive and use surveys. For my clients, I'm recommending at least on a quarterly basis, because I do support them with doing the wellness and remote working surveys. Ask them questions and find out how it's doing. If it's not going well, it gives you an opportunity to improve the working at home, because it's something that just came in and we had to take it on, but we need to keep assessing its effectiveness.
Thank you, Gloria. Any other? Yes, Doctor.
Working remotely, it can be complex for individuals that have not participated in a model such as that. First of all, ensure that your employees have the working tools that are needed. One, a computer and access to internet. I think that's the first things. Besides the soft matters, how are you doing? How are you feeling? How do you find working remotely coming along for you? Now, most importantly is that employees working remotely in the current COVID situation should focus on certain specific deliverables. That is the only way this is going to work. You must say you will deliver on this, on this, on this, on this. You know, we do have staff whose work is really to push paper and move around all the time, but there isn't much that is specific, that is geared towards the business. And therefore, specific deliverables. I don't think there is a time the SMART model has become as important as it has today. Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time-bound targets. You are going to reach to these customers, 10 of them between now and Wednesday, 5 o'clock, give feedback on what they asked they wanted and make the deliveries reach them. That is what is going to work. If I can link that to a question that was raised on KPIs, whether we are going to review that, I think it also came up. Certainly, the situation has changed. People are not working from your office. The targets that were set, they were set based on a normal situation where all things are constant. But now people are working from home. Are you even sure they have a comfortable chair to use to sit on? I am on this webinar right now and I had to get lighting. I had to improvise lighting with Joseph. How do you think your staff are faring on? You want them on a Zoom meeting and they don't have lighting, their faces will be black or darkened when they are talking to you. These are really important things to think about. Even with the KPIs you had set, it's important to start reviewing those now in the face of appraisals that will be coming, and you'll be having fights because you will not get along, because they will tell you COVID came, so I couldn't do that. And you're telling them you should have done, we facilitated you, you were at home. It's important to start thinking about those things right now and start revising what should be revised, actually.
Thank you so much. Any other panelists as we reach to our conclusion? Yes.
Hi, Joseph.
Yes, Uchenna, welcome. Thank you.
Yes, hi. My name is Uchenna. I'm a consultant and I work out of Kenya and Nigeria. I wanted to address that, the question, because it's very passionate for me. I think a lot of people have given different ideas about how to cope with this situation that we have just newly found ourselves. But I also think the entirety of the issues we're going to have to deal with as HR people, it's really wide and it's intricate. Some of the details we haven't even thought about. Some people, when you decide that some are going to be in the head office and the rest are going to work remotely, how do you know how you're going to manage the airflow? There's so many things. How do you determine who's going to work as a remote worker? What if the person doesn't have the interest to be a remote worker? Maybe their home situation or where their work is not conducive to work from that location. There are so many moving parts from this. I have been on a number of these webinars where at the end of the day, you get all the advice, but nobody quite tells you what to do from this point. I think I'm largely advocating for consultants among us or HR people among us who can collate all that needs to be addressed. Because even as HR people, as we're all here, we need to talk about PPE. What happens when somebody actually catches COVID? How do you deal with regulations that are bound to come up in a short while? So whether you have a small business or a big business, you probably need health and safety. I think it was Dockers that talked about evaluation. At the end of the year, business-wise, a lot of us are going to have to report to our board of directors, even though they know that because of COVID, we did not make as much money. But then when you're also addressing that, you have to be able to say, what are the things that we have done and measured, and it has proven to increase productivity? Who's doing all those audits? What are all the things that you've covered? I'm just using this as an opportunity that we can talk this out several times, but at some point we need to be able to address it or get help externally to say who is going to be able to articulate everything that we need so that we can either give some part of it to them to help us clear the technicalities of it, write the, so you run out of time, write the policies, do the induction for the people that are going on remote working and things like that. I'm just thinking that there has to be some sort of package, someone to help us see this through, because for every HR person right now, the regular work has still not gone away. So that's my contribution. Thank you.
Amazing, Uchenna. I'm very realistically true in terms of the conversation. Any comments from the panelists on that?
A real life situation that I've experienced, actually 2 of them, on remote working. One organization, because some of their employees are not able to work remotely because of their living circumstances, so they have shifts. So employees are working in shifts, but they have an office vehicle that will pick them and they bring you in, you work in your shift, and then they drop you home. The point being, they have got to minimize the number. You know, social distance has got to be kept, isn't it? You can't have too many within a small space. So that's how they're managing that. Another example, real life, of an institution that I guided just about a week ago. They have 1,000 employees. They wanted them to come to work. It's in the agricultural sector. And so what are they going to do to continue working, yet maintain the health of everybody and minimize risk? Again, we said you will be working in shifts of this number of employees at a time. They had to install, you know, the walk-through sanitizing booths. They had to put those in place so people are sanitized as they go through. The shoes they come in with, they leave them at a certain point because, you know, they said the virus could be on the shoes. So everybody's doing their best. Temperatures have to be checked. And so everybody was working a shift of 3 hours, they leave, and others come 3 hours, they leave. Because one, they want to make sure everybody keeps earning, but they also want to make sure that everybody is meaningfully engaged in their job. So that's what they have done to keep their employees going in the one of agricultural sector. But the one of working remotely, I don't think that organizations have a choice, because it's the government directive that people have got to be on lockdown and they're not going to be going to work, you know, and therefore in a situation like that, people have got to call upon their abilities to be agile and adjusted to situations. That's what is going on. For the few that can do shifts, they can. But remember, there's also a government directive. Difficult times that have got to call for a different way of looking at these issues. Already in Nairobi, the government is raising concerns that there's already traffic jams going to Nairobi because it's like people have gone back to work. And what that means is that the virus, again, we are moving it around if we have it. So we've got to also think about those measures as well. Every seasoned HR professional should already know by now which activities are essential for their workplace that they cannot do without. Core, C-O-R-E, and which ones can they, you know, do without, you know, from time to time. Finance, you cannot do without. It's a case in point. Do you really need somebody to be making tea for you, or, you know, every day, or cleaning every day? You've got to think what's essential, what is not, and work within those parameters. I think it's a situation that calls for adjustments that are a bit bigger than we all thought about.
Thank you so much, Dorcas. It's the new norm, and I definitely agree. I can see Bruno is there. Thank you, Uchenna, for shifting the thought process in terms of how do we really get this on ground, and throwing the ball to the consultants to say, can we come up with solutions and work plans that are actually very essential? And Dorcas has said, most of us definitely understand what is really needed. I've seen some articles from Conferry, not that I'm advocating for them, but they've done an amazing work in terms of that. So you might want to check from their recent publication from Conferry from South Africa. I can see Bruno Msangi is there. Is Bruno there as I bring this to a conclusion? I really want to hear mostly from you, the participants. Okay, if they're not there, mine is to bring this to the end. Let me see a few hands. Okay, is to bring this to an end, and more so to just share an idea of what ABMC is currently doing during this pandemic, and also I'll give an insight to all the panelists who are here to give one last advice in terms of how do we move forward in regards to managing our high potentials. ABMC is currently offering e-learning solutions, similarly to what LinkedIn is doing. In the past month, we've done over 10 programs for free, and we've actually increased our offering. And in the coming months, we are also trying to develop and ensure that we are also able to give you courses that are more relatable to what is currently being required within workplace. So these are some of the courses that you see on the screen that we're currently offering. Would highly encourage you to join us. And as we proceed, we'll also want you to also take time to look at each and every of these panelists who have been coming here. Stuart is the father of LinkedIn in Africa. You'll always find him there. Dorcas is there on LinkedIn. Dr. Dixon is there on LinkedIn. Nabil is there on LinkedIn. Gloria is there on LinkedIn. It's another way of also channeling the conversation and also ensuring that you're able to contact with them and also find out how best they can be able to support you in some of the initiatives that they have. Us as ABMC will definitely put our foot forward in terms of ensuring such of these programs are being offered to you regularly, especially at this during difficult times, and also to shed light and motivate you in terms of what is the right thing to do in terms of managing during this particular pandemic. So with those few remarks, mine is to thank you all for participating. We are going to have a survey at the end of this particular webinar. It will be sent to you on email. The recording for this particular webinar will also be sent to you on the email that you used to register. Also, the presentations which are presented will also be shared with you during this particular webinar as we conclude perhaps by tomorrow in the afternoon. So with those few remarks, let me start by asking the first presenter, that is Dorcas. I hope Stuart would have been here to give us parting thoughts. I'll try as much as possible to see if we can join with him. And he also has his own webinar lives that always go on LinkedIn. I encourage you to also participate in them. So over to Dorcas, parting shot, and perhaps word of advice as we conclude.
Thank you, Joseph. One of the things I would have done today, if I were working as a HR professional, is to actually have a schedule of all our employees who are working remotely and what they are doing and who their manager is, and have a schedule of when each manager is checking in with them remotely to make sure that they are all okay. Two, I would make sure that we continue celebrating Zoom birthdays and keeping the culture going. And it's very possible to do that. But importantly, keep positive, keep positive, keep positive. These too shall pass. Keep a smile and be happy.
Thank you so much. Very motivational. Thank you, Dorcas. I can see Stuart. Stuart, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I managed to do another live stream and then come back to this one. But parting shot is, guys, I want you to invest in yourself. If anything at all, I've had a career that has been amazing purely because I've had a live digital profile, a live digital presence, a brand that people can understand, a brand that people can learn from. So each and every one of us, as you wake up, my ask of you is make a decision. Today, are you going to be a teacher or are you going to be a student? Share what you've learned, empower the next person, and that will help you grow your presence and make you available for new economic opportunities. Thank you, Joseph.
Thank you so much, and thank you for taking time to be with us once again. Invest in ourselves. Thank you so much. Nabil, I can see you're ready there.
Yeah. My parting thoughts may be a little bit longer. I just wanted to highlight something. There's a task on us as HR professionals, and there's a task on the people themselves. So the part on it on HR, we know that HR has come a long way. We've been doing a lot of changes. The name has been changing throughout until now. I think the latest one is we're calling people talents and talent management and so forth. But even though that name has been changing, is it just cosmetic, or are we actually as well as professional changing and looking for what's the latest, what we can do? Because most of the challenges or the crises that are coming right now, some of it could have been avoided had we been looking at different or alternative ways of getting things done. Working from home is not a new thing. I mean, there's a lot of large organizations like oil and gas or like logistics where have people who are working remotely, and their mistake that gets done costs millions of dollars. So definitely making sure that you manage people who are working remotely is very crucial. So let's seek advice from them to see how they were doing it and how they were getting results based on that accordingly. For us, I will agree with Dorcas. It's all about us. We need to keep positive. It's definitely, there are always light at the end of the tunnel. I don't think it's a tunnel in the first place. It's just a whole wide world out there with a lot of green grass, and there's nothing greener on the other side of the fence. It's greener where we are right now. I believe that we are going to get out of this, but it's just a question of to what. If we are not driving ourselves forward, just like Stuart said, developing ourselves further, looking at what we can do, what results do we want to achieve, then we'll be able to overcome anything that comes our way in the future. Thank you so much for making me part of this panel, and thank for all the people who participated and joined.
As always, it's a pleasure to have you, Nabil, and very insightful as always. So looking forward to have you on another session as well. Thank you so much, and encourage everyone to follow Nabil on LinkedIn, get to find out what he's doing and what he's up to. Thank you, Nabil. Dixon, I can see you there.
Well, Joseph, my parting word would be that this is a new reality for everyone. We are learning as we are moving. So this is a good time to embrace agility. Agility, our readiness to change and readiness to learn. It's important for us to see this as an opportunity to move ourselves to the next level. There's a need for us to continue to collaborate and collaborate. Need help, let's seek for help. It's not what is lost that is important, but what we do with what is left. Let's move the organization to the next level and be agents of that change. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dixon, for staying on the back and also sharing your insights in terms of the questions that were raised. Thank you so much. Gloria, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Thank you.
My parting word, it was a very interesting and enjoyable session. There is no blueprint on how to handle this crisis. We need to take one day at a time. And as we go digital, we will be dealing with a lot of data. There is need to up our skills in data analysis and reporting. And if need be, we need to go back to the basics and use Microsoft Excel, analytical capabilities therein. And lastly, like I mentioned at the beginning, HR practitioners have a lot on our back. We always look at only the company and our employees and forget ourselves. Let us invest in ourselves and let's take care of ourselves, especially emotionally. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gloria. And with that, I want to bring this to an end. Mine is to thank to all the panelists who have taken their time to be here, share their insights, and also for all the participants who also joined us and also participated heavily on the charts and the questions. I'm actually going to leave this webinar open for the next like 10 minutes, such that the panelists can be able to answer questions. And if you want to perhaps come back and throw questions, you can come in. I'll just leave it open for like 10 to 15 minutes, and so that you can answer your questions. Mine is to thank you so much for taking time this afternoon. We hope this has been of value, well spent time this particular afternoon. And mine is to say Happy Women's Day. I think is on the 10th to all the women in the house. And it's Mother's Day. Actually, it's Mother's Day. So happy Mother's Day to all the mothers who are in the house. And thank you for taking time to join us, get to connect with one another, build these connections as we continue. And definitely we are going to get out of this pandemic. It's not here to stay forever. At one point, you remember today that we had this webinar and we discussed 1, 2, 3. So let's ensure that we take whatever we have been able to gather from this webinar and implement and be able to promote and engage our employees so that they become high-performing employees, even during pandemic and after the pandemic. Thank you to Tala team also who pushed me for this, and thank you for joining all your team members on board. Over and above that, we are going to have another webinar, and I'm definitely going to share with you all the details. So with those few remarks, thank you and God bless. Anyone wants to end with a word of prayer?